Hello, Team Absolution fans far and wide. It's time for another video. This time, it's real talk hours. So put aside your notions of reserved takes. Get ready for the hot takes, which actually shouldn't be that hot of takes. But I know your keyboards are ready for some typing. So we'll give you something to type about. I'm joined with a great friend to the team, a great friend to me personally. Jessi, say hi, Jessi.
Hey, Jose.
So what we're going to talk about today is a topic we have tried to cover multiple times, but to be honest, I'm not the best suited person to cover it, and I think the person I'm speaking with is the best suited person to cover it. She is well accoladed in tournament scenes. She plays mostly Weiss instead of Vanguard, a superior game is what I've been told. Debatable, but for the sake of argument, I'll give it to you. So, a person who has led many card communities, well, not many, but one for a very long time, and has been very supportive of women in card games, gender equality in card games in general. A great role model to follow in that regard. So, that being said, what are we doing wrong, man? Like, no. So, let me start with this. Jessi, give the fans just a quick recap how you got into Weiss, why you got into Weiss, and just your journey of how you met us.
Yeah, so if you can't tell, I'm a giant weeb. Really like anime. I love anime. And one day I was out in Chapel Hill with my then boyfriend, now partner, and we went into some game store and there was a Madoka Magica mat like sitting in the little display shop. It was like one of the promo mats that comes with the case. And I had just finished a series. I was like real excited. I was like, I want that because I'm a demon. And the shop owner, for whatever reason, it's probably a good business decision on his part, said, well, that's only a tournament prize for our new Weiss Schwartz game that we're doing. In order to get that mat, you have to learn how to play the game and win a tournament. And I was like, okay, well, what game is it? Fine. I had never played any card games. I'd always collected trading cards. I had like all the little ones you could get at the gas station when I was a kid. And I had like a very small Pokemon card collection, but I never had anybody to play with. Oh, and Sailor Moon trading cards, which I still collect. If anybody has any of them, give them to me or I will buy them from you. So I was like, okay, I like trading cards. I'll do this. And actually, my partner was the one who sat down and taught me how to play because I had no patience to read a rule book. There was no YouTube videos at the time, really. It was like right when Madoka had come out, was like right when Weiss came out in English. I think we even had the Disgaea deck. And so we learned how to play, and sure enough, I ended up winning that tournament. It was shop local. There were like 4 people, not that insane, but I got the mat, and then I got a little taste of it, and then it just didn't stop after that. So that was the same shop that Jose and Brax and Nate and Alston and those guys were going to play Vanguard. And there's a very small Weiss community. So eventually I kind of was like, well, I want to play more games. I'll try and learn their game. And they were really sweet and like played some Weiss with me occasionally. But I was like, well, I'll try and learn their game. And so I started playing the tournaments. I put Braxton to time playing a Pacifica deck. I was that Legion era, right?
That was it was either Legion or Break Ride, but either way, it should not have happened, but it did, and we hold Braxton to the end of time.
Yeah, I just played Weiss. I just kept putting the heals back in the deck because that's how you play Weiss. And so then over time, like the first time I got invited to go to regionals with them because they wanted to see if I wanted to go, I went out on a limb and I did it, and I think we've been pretty much buddies ever since.
That is correct. That is a fair assessment of the facts. So my next question for you is, I thought about whether or not I was going to start with the good or start with the bad, and the good is spoken on way too much. So let's start with the bad. What would you say was the most difficult part? If you had to put, I'm sure there are many, But if you had to name the most difficult thing about entering and let's speak candidly here, it is a male dominated area. As much as I would like it to be less so, as much as I'm sure a lot of people would like it to be less so, but at the time being, it is a male dominated area. What did you find to be the most difficult thing?
Well, I'm always careful when I speak on this because I speak with the caveat that I'm very used to hanging out with guys. Not trying to be a pick me girl, not my vibe at all. It just so happens to be I've always been interested in more male dominated hobbies. And I'm a bit of a tomboy, and it just isn't not something that's always bothered me. So my experiences don't necessarily speak for all women. There's a lot of women I know that don't necessarily feel that way, and they have even more barriers to entry, and they might feel even more uncomfortable. Um, for myself, I would say it's, I'm very fortunate in that my partner also likes to play card games, not as much as we do, especially not that I started beating him routinely at it. It's a little frustrating. He doesn't like, he's not really into it, so it's not that fun to just run into the buzzsaw over and over again. And when you're going into a small, usually game stores are small, you go into a small location, lots of dudes, especially where we used to go up in Chapel Hill, the parking was usually far away. It's something to consider. Like, I don't necessarily know if I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to get followed by some weirdo, or, I go get a cup of coffee and somebody's there, like they're communicating about where I am, it did happen to me. So if you don't have a group of friends, or you don't have a partner who wants to go with you all the time, it can be really challenging to feel safe. And I've talked with you guys, I've talked to other friends in game stores about that. And I think sometimes guys get this like way that, oh, well, I would just punch him, or, you get a taser or whatever. And yeah, sure, that solves the problem in the moment, but that doesn't necessarily solve the problem 2 days from then when they look you up on voter registration and find out what your address is. I feel like I'm giving people ideas. I probably shouldn't. So I think that's one challenge. That was something that I felt, if Jamie didn't necessarily want to go that weekend, sometimes I would just go anyway, especially once I got to know you guys, being having a group of really supportive male friends in the community I wouldn't be doing this if you guys weren't my friends. I know that I can go to a store, and if it gets weird or something's going on, that y'all will stick up for me. And it's happened. There was a situation, it was a couple years ago at our local store, where there was a kid there who just wasn't acting appropriately, and all I wanted to do was finish my game. And I remember this, I'll never forget it, like just this like semicircle of my friends like stood around me so I could finish my game. I was actually playing Vanguard, and that was awesome. So I would say that's a big thing. Another thing to think about is like going to tournaments. Usually when you go, most people I know will split rooms with friends or split travel costs. If you don't have a group of guy friends, or you're not comfortable sleeping in the same room with a bunch of guy friends, then that's all on you. So you've got to pay the full hotel. You've got to pay well, maybe you drive down, or you just pay your own way. Sometimes I sleep in my own room because of the snoring. It's not because I have to.
Can confirm all these facts are true. The facts
And I
continue.
snore too, so I'm sure it's not great. But I guess another thing that is, I think, somewhat particular to Weiss, and this is a little spicy. I've totally argued with even my friends in the Weiss community about this, is sometimes you have like really lewd art on cards. Have nothing against lewdness. I have a desk calendar. None of my coworkers can see it when I'm working from home. It's fate granddaughter, and it runs the gambit. I keep my stuff at home. Now, when you're in public, and say you're new to the game or you're new to the scene, and you've got the lewdest of the waifu mats, and some, even especially why some of the lewdest of the cards, and you're female, you're like, well, how, like, if this is the way that, like, I only see women being displayed in this manner, are these people going to be weird to me?
100%. Which is also an issue from my understanding as well. Okay, this one I can speak from seeing it both to you and to other. I've had girlfriends who have visited shops. I have girls that I've been with romantically come to the shop, and they get hit on, they get followed, and I hate to say it, until and I don't want to say like this, but this is just a fact, until a dominance is established, as in, like, there was a situation where a girl I was with at the time, we were at a shop, a girl I was with at the time, I was running the tournament, so I couldn't, like, obviously, nor should I have to keep an eye on, like, what's going on, making sure that no one's making her feel uncomfortable. A card shop should be a safe haven for all people who want to just enjoy games. But I noticed things were starting to get a little, and it wasn't until I came over and I had to basically, like, display to him that we were together, that he somewhat, like, revved it down. And I say revved it down because a mature human being would just cease, but it was not a cease, it was just a rev down. And that alone is unacceptable, and that happens to too many. Just because someone shares a hobby that you're passionate about with and happens to be the gender of which you are attracted to does not mean you should chase them with the relentless, because you were there to play card games, they were there to play card games, they were not there to fall in love. If it happens, it'll happen organically by its own volition. Starting it is, and being very forward and aggressive with it, is not a solution by any means. And Jessi, you would be, and being negative to these people while they're playing the game is also, take it from somebody who has been on his fair share of dates. It's not a winning strategy, okay? It's just not. So I wanted to leave, and you kind of touched on it there at the tail end. What would you say is the most uncomfortable aspect of being a female? Is it the mats? Is it the lewdness? Or is it the I mean, they're both bad, so you can take it to 7-12 and pick them, but, like, is it the material that you see? Is it the weirdness that you see? Is it the unhygienic nature that you see in a lot of situations? There's a lot you could pick from. But I want to know, from your perspective, what do you find, I guess, what keeps you, well, this is the best way I think to phrase the question. What keeps you from inviting your friends into a card show?
Let's see. So I'll kind of take the two-part question, actually. So I'll give my perspective. Again, my way that I approach things is a little bit different. Not totally unique. I know there are plenty of other women who feel the same way, but it's a little bit different. The thing that bothers me the most, that makes me the most uncomfortable, is there are times, especially in a regional, not so much in my local, but when I go to a regional and I'm in Swiss or whatever, and I sit down and I'm with a player I don't recognize, and they automatically assume I don't know what the heck I'm doing, which is actually pretty funny because I just let them continue assuming that, and they kind of make mistakes, and I take advantage of that. But I don't think that you have to be a good player as a woman to be a valid player. I don't think anybody has to be a good player to be a valid player. We can totally have our opinions about how people approach the game, right? But like, just because a woman's playing the game, in order to be taken seriously, she doesn't need to top tournaments. I feel pressure, and I think that more so in the past when I was younger, I'm an old lady now, more so when I was younger, I felt a lot of pressure to perform, and I felt pressure to top because I wanted to show that I was serious. And I won't get into it. There's a video that was posted, what was it, last week or the week before, that I totally disagreed with that woman's perspective on things. People, it's not about attention. It's not about getting your I don't know, attention points or your guy points. I don't know, that just isn't what, at least in my opinion, the majority of women are there for. They're there to play. They're there to have a good time just like anybody else. Now the reason that I probably wouldn't bring my friends, I have tried my best. I have had my more normie friends actually that were visiting me from out of state. We cracked a case of Bermudas one time. And they had fun. They actually really enjoy opening the packs with me. They don't know what the heck any of it is. And somebody found an SP, and they, it was a great day. But I've tried to bring them into the store to be. It's kind of funny, honestly. It's the smell.
No, I mean, in a lot of card shops, it can get bad very quickly, 100%, especially in Charlotte. I won't name the shops, but I mean,
well, even regionals, like you walk in
regional, oh my god,
hits you like a wall. And
like
I have my own defense mechanisms of like, I got the hand sanitizer that's real smelly, like from Bath and Body Works. I have like my scent bubble I create.
You also have that really powerful cologne that if you need to really put it on, you can just put it on yourself, and at least that creates like a sphere of like scent.
Exactly. Just this is a protective bubble. But honestly, like that, even some of my friends who, I don't know, maybe they would have played, maybe they wouldn't have. It was very challenging to get them back into our store. And our store is very female friendly. Like most of the staff on Saturdays is female. Like that's not really the issue. And there's a bunch of stores that are not. There's stores that you walk in and people feel the need to say stuff. And it's not really, I don't know why. I don't know if that's ever worked ever.
Right. And just to speak on some of the things you brought up, an opponent is an opponent, okay? Like if you think, just from a competitor's perspective, you got to think the person across from you is going to do their best to win the game. Now, whether or not they are good or not can be up for debate. They could be terrible. They could be great. But the point is, you have to believe that they're playing for the best of your ability. Because if you second guess yourself, if you wouldn't look, at least from my perspective, if I underestimate my opponent and then lose, I've only set myself up for like the worst type of self-hate. But if I think my opponent is playing to the best of their ability and then I lose, at least I lost to someone I thought was, decent. Or even if I'm in the middle of the game, I'm like, oh, that's not a play I wouldn't make at all. Then say that, keep that to yourself, take advantage of the situation and win the game. Or,
yeah.
There's a lot of situations. And I think what you said at the very beginning is a very poignant thing, because I never once, the only pressure I ever felt to be good at the game was pressure I put on myself. There was never an outward force that felt like, to be accepted in the community, I had to be good. I have a small, don't get me wrong, a small YouTube channel. And at the very beginning, we had 0 tops to show for it. None, zilch. And I had the audacity, the unmitigated gall and ego to say, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But some people, and I never thought that for some people there might be that external force. So now, if you guys are still watching out there, you guys are probably wondering, okay, why the hell does this matter? Here's why it matters, as far as I'm concerned. Then I'll throw it off to Jessi as to why it matters to you. We are never going to see the social acceptance to the level that anime is only now beginning to see, right? This wide zeitgeist, like social acceptance in the United States as an interest. It is much bigger than it used to be. And I think that is just as a result of the overall growth of nerdom, as in like as hobby comic books, the MCU. There's a lot of external forces we go into that can lead to its growth, but it is growing. I think a part of that growth is that there are some strides being taken to fix some of these faults we've discussed, right? And both in the media, in the medium, I'm talking about anime in particular and comic books and stuff like that, that has led to it being more socially acceptable across the board. I would love to see the day where card games are in that kind of sphere, where I never get asked by any type of person, a fan or another one, like, hey, I want to play card games, but my family thinks it's weird or dumb, or hey, I want to get into card games, but all my people that I know like relentlessly mock me for it or whatever. I want to get past those days. But if we don't address this very simple, the only way to do that is to get more people in the game. And the only way to do that is to make it much more wide reaching. And to make it able to do that, you have to address these problems. Um, it's just good business as far as growing
Yeah.
it. So what are your thoughts in regards to that? If someone would ask you, well, why does this, I mean, you join card games anyways. The other girls will too. Like, why do we have to change? It's a very stick in the mud argument, but if someone could make it.
So what should we do, or why does it matter?
Why does it, like, I guess obviously it does to you and me, it doesn't matter, but somebody would ask you, why does it matter? And so what would you answer, aside from maybe the stuff I mentioned, but like,
Yeah.
or if you
Well,
wanted to build off of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you made some really good points. I think that, my career is in marketing, so I have some thoughts about audience and how to make your product as sell as well as it possibly can. Obviously, broadening your audience, you can go broad or you can go deep. So you can get players that already play the game to buy more product, buy cases, and do something to get players buying cases every release. I don't, I couldn't afford that. That's $1,000, every month or so. That's a lot of money. So there is a limitation to how deep your current player base can potentially spend, right? Especially, card games are not the cheapest hobby. So the other way you can go is you can go wide. So broadening the audience, you don't want to go so broad that it's literally everyone, because then you're kind of just shooting shotgun pellets, hoping you'll hit somebody. But you broaden it a little bit. You broaden it to women. You broaden it to non-binary people. You broaden it to anybody who might not feel as welcome in a card store. I do think one thing that, at least in my experience, card games, especially in Bushiroad games, does really well is various levels of representation for diversity. And I think our friend group's fairly diverse. I've had most of my experiences as a light-skinned woman being around people of diverse backgrounds, socioeconomically, in card stores. It's great. That's amazing. I think that it's such an amazing place where you can meet people of any background. So that's why I think that's socially why it matters. And I think for women, there's this, and going back to this video, Jose knows it stuck in my craw, and I had a whole lot of feelings about it. I think I ranted to him about like 40 minutes. But it doesn't need to be woman versus woman. That is not the point. And in our society, the way, women don't have as many concrete ways to compete with each other. So it tends to be, who is the most conventionally attractive, who is the most caring, who's in these roles, who performs these roles better, who has the most attention points, right? And that's toxic, and it's got to stop. Women, we need to stop comparing ourselves to each other. We need to stop competing. I'm not going to go too far into it, but the patriarchy is already doing that. So we got to stop pulling each other down. And, if we want to compete, let's do it in a way that we could compete with anybody. Go into card games, see who you could potentially win against or not, or play for fun. Who cares? Do the thing, right? So, go into sports or whatever, some kind of competitive venue that anybody can approach. Even card games, we said, was an expensive hobby. It doesn't have to be. How many times have I beat Braxton with a little risers 16 stand deck?
It's true. More than enough to make him mad, that's for sure. No, and it doesn't have to be like you said earlier, like it just has to be about, not everyone who plays Vanguard or Weiss is a competitive player. I mean, you would think they all play to win, right? Because it's a competitive game by nature, but they're not in it to the serious level that someone like you and I were at a certain point in our card gaming careers. Um, if you want to call them careers. If but however, what we can say is they should be allowed to enter the game without any stigma, without anything, and enjoy it, because that's what card games are meant to be done. So I want to break down some action items and see if you agree with them, for the community, and for, I'm gonna start from the top and go down to the bottom. The individual, the community, the shop. That's bottom up, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna start from the top and work way down. So first, the card game manufacturer. Look, we get it. We know what sells. All right, we're not dumb. She has a base of marketing. It's pretty obvious. Okay, we get it. We get it. We get it. We get it. But there's a tasteful way to do it, and there's a not tasteful way to do it. And there's a
Or
line.
equal opportunity, man. I've got a shirtless gray deck. Hey.
Right, but a true equal opportunity, because I know I've read some things about like the power. Make sure it doesn't play to the power fantasy and actually plays to the aesthetic that females are into. You know, some girls like dad bods. Show that off. Hey. Please. No, I'm kidding. So that's the card. You know, don't, I guess, for the card shop producers, in this case Bushiroad, don't lean into what you know is already existing to make a quick buck, because that's what you're doing. Let's cut through the grass here. You see an avenue, you know your market base, you're really content with what it is, so you just, it's going deeper. It's exactly what Jessi said earlier. It's going deeper. You decided, oh well, growing it seems too difficult of a task, so I'm just going to sell them booby mats. Done. Money, baby. Give this man a raise. So do you agree with that? Do you think that's a good standpoint with anything you want to add there at the top level?
Yeah. And I think, there are some women who are into lewd anime chicks too. I said, I got my own, but it's all about the signaling. It's not necessarily about the lewdness in and of itself. I'm not trying to be a prude, not trying to be anybody's nanny, but it's the signaling. It's, you see a guy or anybody really in a hagao sweatsuit, and you might think twice, like, is this dude gonna be, or this person gonna be weird to me?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. We're gonna wait down the card shops. I think they play much more of a enforcement role here, for lack of a better term. Because they are the havens, like I mentioned earlier. I truly believe that card shops should be safe havens for people of all backgrounds. You said it beautifully about, like, card shops are such a great place for a diverse group of individuals that can come together from very different backgrounds. I had a girlfriend once who, when we were hanging out and I was talking about my friends, she had mentioned, you have such a diverse group of friends, like even like from socioeconomic, race, like everything. You have such a group of friends. Like, how did you manage to do that? And I remember, I will never forget the response, because it's one of my few quick-witted ones, where I said, look, we're just a group of card players just trying to make it our way through the world. That's literally it. We're just a group of card players trying to make our best through the world. And so it's a great linking hobby. All the closest friends I have that I've made over the last 7 to 8 years, all lines lead back to card games in some form or fashion. By 1 order, 2 orders, or I would think max 3 orders. It all, right before it gets to Cave and Bacon, it gets to Vanguard or a card game. So they have to take the responsibility of keeping those places safe and, most importantly, inviting. So next, I'll hand that off to you. Anything you want to add there, as someone who's been a community leader?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that card shops are the real keepers, because Bushi's gonna do Bushi, and we know Bushi. That's okay, fine, whatever. We can still hold them accountable, but at the end of the day, that's a much bigger hill to climb. Now, I'll rep our local shop as much as I can, because the manager there has really empowered me to lead the community. any decision that I make, obviously with checks and balances, but he's been really supportive. I did tell them about like the To Love release that was not what they probably would have expected, and there wasn't a very obvious content rating on it. And they decided not to stock it, and that sent a message to Bushiroad. Yeah, a lot of shops were caught off guard by that release, and they didn't know not to sell it to 10-year-olds, right? They don't know what it is. I want the anime cards, right? It's not a super popular title here. And next thing you know, you've got stuff. So beyond just the content too, I think that it's up to the card shops to create an environment of welcomingness and enforcement. That's the other part of the equation there. It's enforcing the rules when the rules need to be enforced. I just mentioned a situation where there was somebody who I'm pretty ballsy. They made me feel uncomfortable and afraid. And this person was following me around the store. I walked outside to get a breath of air, and they were following me. My partner happened to be there that night, and he went in and was like, dude, you got to stop. And while I was getting myself together, he was going through my stuff in the store. And sure enough, as soon as management heard about it, person was gone. Not banned, not to be heard from again. And I didn't feel weird about going back because I knew that they had my back if that ever happened again. That is not always the case. There's this funny meme that I saw. I don't even know if it's a meme. It was just a picture of like some magic shop that was holding a GP. I don't know what they call their tournament circuit. And they had a toilet. This is kind of gross, but like they had taken the seat off of the toilet just so people wouldn't use it for something that most guys have to sit down to do. But that made it completely unusable to anybody who sits down to use the restroom.
Yep, 100%.
There's just dumb stuff like that, or I think the first time I walked into our local store to play Vanguard, there used to be a bunch of young kids that would play in the tournament, and I was probably one of the first women to show up, and I got swarmed. Now, luckily, I'm me, and I just thought it was funny, but that would be really off-putting to somebody who was not it. And so it's up to the store employees, it's up to the store owners to see that, notice what's happening, and say, "Hey guys, chill." I know you're, and they were actually really excited. They were really nice. They just wanted to know what deck I was going to play, and like what they were just wanting to get to know me and know what my name is. I was a lot older than them, so it was nothing really weird. But it's up to the employees and it's up to the community leaders and the TOs to say, hey, let's give her some space. You'll get to see her in the tournament. You can say hi, calm down.
Right.
That's kind of my 4 cents.
No, it's beautiful. Great advice. And now we go back to the individual. And here's where I'll talk to my people and you can talk to your people. The people who want to listen to me and the people who will listen to you, the people who not listen to me might listen to you, the people who won't listen to you might listen to me. Or they won't listen to either of us and we'll end up nowhere.
That's probably the case.
But the point is, at least it's in the echo chamber, all right? Some words of wisdom from me. 1, if you're in a card shop and a relatively new player is attractive to you, don't do anything. There's nothing more to add there. You're there, like, I can only so far as explain it as why. Would you do that? Yeah, like it boggles the mind. I can't. This one really sticks up my craw because I think it's annoying to those who don't do it, such as myself. And it's incredibly annoying to the people affected. And it's oblivious to those doing it. So it really boggles the mind. Look, I understand that you're there to make friends. Obviously, I've made all my friends through card games, a lot of them. And even before I knew about card shops, some of my best friends growing up, my friendships were solidified through those hobbies. But that's the key word. I made friends through card games. If you were to ask me how many significant others I have had in the past who have a history in card games, there are literally zero links there, because that was not a requirement. That was not, and more importantly, if I saw someone who was attracted to me who didn't play, who played card games, that wasn't an instant like, yeah, that's the one.
Also,
Like,
you're gonna have to share your stuff with them. It's not that easy.
it's not. It really isn't.
That's
So
2 sets of staples you're gonna have to buy.
that's 8 copies of a $40 card. Do you really want to do that? I don't think you do. And look, if that's not, I'm not saying don't share hobbies with your significant other. Let me make that perfectly clear, because you should, right? But the point is that not every girl or attractive individual that you see when you walk into a card shop should be automatically considered a romantic prospect, because you know nothing about them. Seek friendship with everybody. Find out more people, and then let what happens happens. If a friendship blossoms, so be it. If something else somehow ends up happening, good job. If nothing happens, which is the more likely scenario, you'll say, hey, that was a really good game. Yeah, me too. I'll see you around. Have a good time. Sweet. Later. Bye. And you go O2, you go to the movies. Done. Not with the person, by yourself or your friends. That's my first piece of advice. What's your first piece of advice, Jessi?
Let's see. I would say to women who want to get into card games but have either had a bad experience or are worried about it, I would say the first thing, and it's really not fair that, you may have to step up. And I don't tend to get a lot of bad reactions to me. I've actually talked to Jose a lot about this, because at one point it gave me a complex. I was like, what's wrong with me? But a lot of it is really just knowing, like, feel confident in yourself that you're there to play. And if somebody is inappropriate with you or says something that makes you uncomfortable, I know that it's hard to say it to that person, because again, my thing is, I don't want to get stabbed the second I walk out of the store. Confronting that person can be uncomfortable. And this goes back to where the shops have responsibility in this too. Find an employee that seems friendly to you, or that you feel like you can talk to, or even another player. If you know somebody, I do recommend, if you feel weird, go with a friend, go with a partner, go with somebody who makes you feel comfortable, that you feel like you can back you up. Like, if you're just like, hey, that's not cool. And if you're not comfortable directly confronting somebody, I like to do what I call the aggressive ignore maneuver. So if, like, Jose comes up to me and he's like, oh, hey, what game are you playing? That looks really interesting. What's that all about? And I'm in the middle of a game. I just pointedly ignore whatever he's doing, whatever he's saying to me, until it's an appropriate time for me to respond. I just pretend like he's not there. And then a couple minutes later, maybe my turn has passed, maybe the other player's thinking, is that person still standing there? You turn and you say, this is Weiss, or Vanguard, or Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever you're playing. And then you leave it at that. You don't have to be polite. You don't have to offer anything beyond you want to. You don't even have to respond to them. If you feel like it's uncomfortable or dangerous not to respond to them, that they're getting agitated, you can do the bare minimum. And I would say like 40 to 50% of the time, that nips it in the bud. It's the aggressive ignoring. And again, like, I don't want to put the burden on women or anybody who feels uncomfortable, or female identifying people who feel uncomfortable. But at some point, just like with other things, to just elbow your way in there, you kind of have to project some amount of unapproachability. And that stinks. And then people can get to know you and realize that you're actually kind of fun. One thing I remembered wanted to say to Jose's point about, you don't know that person when you hit on them. I'm a demon. I am a horrible person
That's just not true. That's categorically untrue. She's saying that because she could be coarse at times, but that's not true.
Of course, I'm high maintenance. I spend a lot of money on weeb merch. I'm going to spend all of your money. You don't know what you're getting into. You may think that it's fun because I like to play card games, but I will spend your money and I will boss you around, and you're probably not going to like it. So be careful what you wish for, is kind of my point.
That's a good point. Advice number 2 from me. And this is all around the board here. A player walks in and they're new to a game and they've chosen someone to teach them. Leave them alone. It's that easy. Whether they be female, male, non-binary, whatever they be, if they are here to learn a game and they have asked somebody, whether it be an employee, a community leader, a person that they recognize, a person that they know, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you played this. Like, yeah, I play this. And they're like, oh, well, do you mind teaching me? And you sit down and teach, leave them alone. They have decided how they would like to proceed in learning the game. If they want your advice, they won't ask for it. Okay? As a person who has taught people Vanguard, who has taught people other games, and a person who has just spent time observing, this happens way too often. Leave them alone. One, because the information you have is not important if someone has asked them to teach you a game, they're either going to be a good or bad teacher. You'll find out after the fact. But there is a way to teach a card game, and there's a way not to teach a card game. And overloading someone with a ton of specific mechanic informations is not a way to teach someone a card game. You start with the basics, and you work your way up. But so many times when I've had the experience of teaching both of all genders card games, it's always, okay, so this is what you do. And then I hear someone walk in the back, oh, well, you could do this. And now I'm no longer teaching someone, I'm playing you, proxying. And I'm going to beat you. And then I'm going to be very upset that I didn't get to teach this person the game. Because I have to start all over and they're going to be like, oh, what did all that mean? Like, I need you to put that all in the recycle bin, delete it, and we're going to start fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do that. It's bad for new players in general. And it's uncomfortable because look, I'm not saying there's a bias, except there absolutely is. If I were to think about the times I've taught in a card gaming community, the times I've taught a male how to play a card game, there's some interaction that I don't like, but usually I'm just like, shoot, get away. Let me teach this person. When it's a female that I'm teaching how to play a card game, I'll be lucky if I get to 3 damage. I'll be like, yeah, and now we're about to talk about, oh, what you could do. Oh, what are you doing? Look what's going. This very connected to part 1. Part 2 is let them learn. Let them learn. And if you let them learn, maybe when you see them in a tournament, you won't act like they're not knowing what they're doing. That's rant number 2 I'm on What Not to Do by Jose Perez. Jessi, what's advice number 2 on your end?
Oh man, that was such a good one. I've never thought about that before. As I started laughing, I was thinking about all the times that something like that has happened when I was teaching. As kind of 2 ways. I've taught other women in a card store. One of my very good friends who actually does my hair, she was learning from me, and somebody I know, won't name names, followed her around the store, and I had to pull him aside and be like, dude, leave her alone. And I didn't know her very well at the time, and I was like, hey, are you okay? Like, are they bothering you? And she was trying to be nice to me, but later she told me, she was like, I was so glad that you did that because that was really weird. I was like, okay, no problem. I love to tell people to leave, trying to keep it PG. And so that's such a good piece of advice. And I would say, if a woman or somebody who identifies as such is teaching you a card game, maybe don't tell her or them how the card game should be played.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice.
I can't tell you the number of times I've been teaching somebody new. Usually it's a guy, and they'll be like, no, I don't think that's how it works. I've played the game for like a long time. I'm pretty sure I know that this is how it works. And usually somebody will come up and be like, yeah, that's how it works. And then it's like, oh shoot, that was right. I don't know what it is. Bushiroad games are not Magic the Gathering. They are not Yu-Gi-Oh! They work differently, and if you've never played one before, it's going to seem strange. But just have a little faith. It'll be okay. That's my piece of advice.
Advice. I'm trying to think if I actually got a good third one. I mean, I got plenty. I have hundreds of where I would like to see. But you know what? We start with baby steps. So those are the first two. Do those two things, and I guarantee you things will be a lot better. Okay, do those two things. And you'll be happy. And the thing is, and here's what bugs me, is that the people, most of you guys who are watching this, honestly, I have some confidence in you. There are some of you I don't, but most of you I do. That either A, you haven't acknowledged it, or you never thought about it that way, or whatever. A lot of you, you're like, yeah, this is obvious. Like, I would never do that. And I believe you. You would never do that. But, you know, a rotten apple ruins the bushel. So, like, you got to ask yourself and find these people that you're like, you know what? I do need to, because that's my last advice I'm going to give you. Silence is being a knowing bystander. If there's anything that 2020 and 2019 has taught me, most specifically 2020 has taught me, is that like silence is the act of neutrality. And while I believe that many of you sit idly by and don't do any of the things I've just mentioned or Jessi has mentioned, or totally reciprocal and very nice to new players, as one should be, what you have seen these things, I guarantee you of that. You've seen these things happen. You've noticed them, and you've let them go on because you're like, hey, it's not me. Which I get that. But maybe there comes a time where you can, and I'm not saying white knight. That's very clear. Maybe very crystal.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But what I'm saying is that if given the opportunity to say, why don't you ever ask me if I know what I'm doing, but you asked her? I played this deck for all of 2 weeks. You think I know what I'm doing? No. This yellow card kills you? Oh, it does? Go home, kid. Like, okay, don't be that vicious with it. But just as an example, right? Point out these systems because they exist so far. And I'm not saying shame the guy, but also shame the guy. Don't shame the guy. That was bad advice. But definitely point it out to him and make him, because there is a chance he doesn't know what he's doing, or they don't know what they're doing. It's a very obvious thing. It's a possibility. And you have to give him the chance to learn. Now, if you've acknowledged it and he continues to do repetitive action, then you have cause to be like, bro, shut the hell up. That's my capstone. Jessi, what's your capstone? You got any capstones? Any hills you want to die on there?
Let's see. I'm going to say two things. One is really short. I've never played against somebody I consider to be a very talented player that was a jerk to me. Never in my life. There are a dozen, maybe a few more players in Weiss that consistently top tournaments. You guys know who they are and you know who you are. None of them have ever treated me any differently than they would have treated any opponent. So I'm going to say that. So if you're being a jerk to a female player, it probably means you're trash. Secondly, advice to anybody, but especially female players or people who might experience some harassment at events, judge call. There are floor rules. There are rules that say that you cannot be a jerk to your opponent, and familiarize yourself with the floor rules. Every single regional we go to, I meet at least one woman, sometimes they're even part of our group, who has had somebody be a jerk to them and they didn't know whether or not they could judge call. Just do it. I would
100%.
do it anytime.
I'll judge call if he's shuffling too long. I definitely judge call for that.
Yeah, it is a penalty offense, and I will say, to Bushiroad's credit, at least the judges, I think especially her name is Sam, the female TO, she does not tolerate crap at all. I've myself, because I have just not a whole lot of fear, which is a good and a bad thing. Walked other women up to the judges table after the fact and talked to her, and I think at least one time they were able to have like another witness that saw what happened, and they were able to like, I think the guy got a what do they call it when you get like a first warning or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think he got a first offense or like a verbal warning or something like that.
Yeah. But you know what? When it comes to you fail deck check after that, that's a game lost.
It's done.
So
Game over.
yeah. So
or if you mess up anything else, like
exactly.
that you've already done. Now if you're like, oh, I put the trigger in the wrong spot, judge, that's game loss. Maybe you lose just because you were a jerk.
One time I failed deck check, or I almost failed deck checks and forgot to put my player number on my deck list.
Boom.
If I had messed up earlier in that tournament, my day would have been over. I wouldn't have gone to top 8. So that would have sucked. So judge call. I don't care who you are. If anybody is being a jerk to you, especially what do they call, like a tier 1 event or something, judge call. Bushi judges don't take crap like that, and I will applaud them. You know, that wasn't always the case in all card games. So and if you have questions about the floor rules, I'm gonna throw them under the bus. Ask Team Absolution, ask Andrew.
100%.
You know, they'll answer them in advance when we're going back to in-person events.
That being said, it's a lot and it's a long video. If you stayed to the end, I thank you. It was a doozy. Let us know in the comments what your story was. You know, what experience have you had? What have you told your shops? What advices have you taken? What steps have you taken? What experiences have you had? We're more than happy to hear you down there in the comments. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I want to thank Jessi for joining me in this wonderful video. And I want to thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you here next time. Peace.
Bye.